Rude.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. This is hour number 2. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine, and we want you to be a part of that. One of the ways you can do that is to call us or text us, 870-275-9799. All right, so what do we got here? Man, I'm looking forward to this segment here. I really am. Have you seen what the Arkansas Democrat Party, what they are doing? I'm gonna have to get my keyboard closer here. So the Arkansas Democratic Party, they've tweeted a few things recently. And what they're tweeting is, you see this there, fellow Democrats. This is you can follow them on Twitter if you want. I mean, I wouldn't suggest it, but you could. It's at ARKDems. Not D-I-M-S. Not like they're dim. Like they're Dems. ARKDEMS. Fellow Democrats, we are now seeking nominations. Look at this. We're seeking nominations for our annual awards. The following awards will be given at this year's hashtag Clinton dinner. Now, that used to be, what's funny about this, folks, is that actually the Clinton dinner. The Clinton dinner used to be the Jefferson Jackson Day dinner, but they had to get rid of that one. They had to get rid of it. You remember that? It's part of the Arkansas Democrat Party. They're ashamed of Thomas Jefferson. They're ashamed of him. They didn't want to name the guy who wrote the Declaration of Independence because he had slaves. They had to change the name of the Jefferson Jackson dinner. It's pretty pathetic. So now it's called the Clinton dinner because that's fantastic. I suppose that's just that just not the is it the Bill Clinton dinner or is it just called Clinton? Is it kind of is it a nod to like the whole family? If it's a nod to the whole family. And I only say this because, honestly, I don't really know how pro-choice Bill Clinton was. I mean, that was before. But see, back in the 90s, people didn't realize what abortion was. Now there's been an education movement. People actually know you're taking a life here. And the popular opinion on this is just gone way back to the right, because people understand what this is. But if you want to make this if the Clinton dinner wants to be about that the Democrats are throwing, if that encompasses Hillary at all and her radical pro-abortion views, pro-Margaret Sanger views, I got news for you, folks. I mean, in a couple of decades, when abortion is looked at the way slavery is looked at today, and I really believe that it will be, they're going to have to change the name of their dinner again. Just throwing that out there. And changing the name of the dinner won't change the fact that something offensive happened in history, by the way. Now, let them own it. Let them own it. Don't change it. Anyway, so fellow Democrats, we are now seeking nominations for our annual awards. The following awards will be given at this year's end. I'm sorry, I did the same thing again. At this year's Clinton dinner. Goes on. You can kind of scroll down here. Hang on one second. Scroll down. Hang on. Did I click out of it? I think I might have clicked out of it. Let me see here. You go down here, submissions. Now, this is what I wanted right here. Submissions can be made at the link below. Okay. So at the link below, you see the clintondinner.com/award submit. So when we click on over there, this is what it looks like. Let me see if I can't zoom in on this a little bit for you folks. I'm producing the show and hosting the show myself today. So the 2017 Summer Gathering and Clinton Dinner. This is for the Arkansas Democrat Party, by the way. So they're asking for names of top Democrats. Who are the top Democrats? So I decided, and I'm going to do this here on air. I'm going to submit some names of, I think they're top Democrats. I mean, the Democrat Party may not think that they're top Democrats, but I think that they're top Democrats, okay? So we're going to start with your name. Okay, I'll be transparent here. My name's Paul. I shouldn't go by an alias, right? I mean, they're going to know who it is. Hey, you know what? You guys out there should submit your names too. Submit names for top Democrats. Okay? I mean, you really should. Okay, I'm going to give the show email address here. Let's see here. There we go. So we have.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program today. My name is Paul, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. And if you want to help us out, you want to help us build it, one of the ways you can do that is to give us a text message. Give us a phone call, 870-275-9799. There are some people in this state in positions of power, just so you know, who are skeptical of the liberty machine that we're building. Matter of fact, they don't even, I don't know, they might even reference, machines that they think are actual liberty machines. That certainly is, at least I guess I've noticed that. You know what I find it really interesting on the concept of liberty. Let's take John McCain for example. Okay, John McCain is a military guy, right? He is known and well respected for his military service, being a prisoner of war, and really, I'll just say this: on that alone, the man has a stronger spine than I'll ever have. For what he's done and what he went through. But it's interesting to me, what does it say when you can recognize the enemy overseas, but you can't recognize the enemy back home when it comes to the potential destruction of everything this country stands for? What does it say about that? I find that to be such an odd, what I consider to be an inconsistency, and I feel like it's very odd that you'd be able to recognize. I guess I don't know what exactly. What I know what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for a limited government that is prescribed in the Constitution, because it counts on the imperfections of man, the faults of man that will try to force others to do things, and use the government that has the guns to do it. Right? So isn't that what, just if we're going to take John McCain for an example, and we're going to use the military analogy here, isn't that what the military fights for? People who are trying to force other people to do things in an unfair manner. Worlds and governments that are absent the freedoms that we enjoy here. And we could get into a really large argument or a long argument on, trying to export democracy and that sort of thing. And, how effective that's been, and, foreign policy and everything else. I'm just saying, I find it very conflicting when you have someone like John McCain, who certainly, with his military service, I'd say, yeah, that's something. That is, you can almost not even put it into words. Just to say it deserves respect is kind of almost disrespectful. Just to brush it off like that. You know what I mean? But I find it strange, when him casting that vote, saying that he doesn't want to repeal Obamacare, exposing, himself to be just a complete fraud. And there's a vast amount of dishonor in what he did, by the way, as honorable as his military service is. Not being able to recognize that socialism is a danger to this country, that communism is a real danger to this country, that the government being able to control and dole out at their discretion resources that we need, the same government that demands you purchase a product or not be in good standing with the same government. I guess I just don't understand how you could recognize an enemy overseas, recognize the benefits of this country overseas, but then not be able to recognize what is an enemy here domestically, and that is an ever-expanding, large, centralized government that is well outside the enumerated powers that the Constitution of the United States prescribes, demands, is the law, yet it's ignored so often. There's certainly news, speaking of the Fourth Amendment, that's ignored a lot. We talked a little bit about that last show in relation to the Arkansas Game and Fish. But in the news today, just in the national news today, you have WikiLeaks with more information about the CIA being able to turn on your webcam. Of course, we remember the Edward Snowden leaks, the data center out in Utah. And you get the feeling that, the mainstream media certainly never wants to report on that for some strange reason. Don't want the people to know. But they do put people on air who are like, well, I don't have anything to hide, so I don't care if they can spy on everything I ever do or have ever done or have ever said online or ever typed and then hit the backspace button online. X Keyscore was the name of that program, if memory serves correct. And then you get the feeling, oh, wow, we are really just looking at the feet of this giant stone statue whose name is Surveillance State. And that's really in the news right now, by the way, with the unmasking, Susan Rice and the Obama administration. That story, along with the rare story that you'll see in the headlines about the surveillance capabilities of the government to spy on everyday Americans. And they'll say they have protections. They'll say they have checks and balances, the FISA covert committee. They call it a court. It's really just a covert committee. Not really much of a court at all. But anyway, sorry, I don't mean to get off on that rabbit trail. I've got a lot on my mind today. I really do. We got a lot to get to. At the bottom of this hour, we're going to be talking with Mr. Jerry Cox of the Family Council Action Committee. They released an Arkansas legislative scorecard, which I'm sure establishment Republicans will figure out a way to have a problem with, because establishment Republicans here in Arkansas, they just love to figure out problems. Interesting, on the scorecard, some Democrats ranking higher than Republicans. Now, the Family Council ranks people based on social issues. Remember that. Interesting that there's some Democrats that rank higher than Republicans. I'm sure the Republican Party establishment is going to be really upset that they scored SJR 8, the tort reform bill, negatively. I mean, if you voted for it, then you didn't. That's bad. That counted against you. And I'll have President Jerry Cox on again at the bottom of this hour, and we will be discussing this more. In the meantime, though, Arkansas's own Senator Tom Cotton went on Tucker Carlson last night to talk more about the RAISE Act. I got to tell you, we got a ton of feedback from you out there, texting, voicemails, who were really, really pleased with Senator Tom Cotton pursuing these conservative reforms. about about us having a say in who gets to come here, about trying to help and lift the wages of the American workers, and even on Facebook, because I think he even went on Morning Joe this morning. Notice when Tom Cotton goes on liberal outlets like MSNBC, he doesn't criticize Republicans like Governor Asa Hutchinson does. See, when Asa goes on CNN and MSNBC, they have him on because he's a, quote, Republican that will say, well, I'm not so sure just repealing without a replacement is a good idea. I don't know if Donald Trump has a good idea there. You know what I mean? Thereby, Asa willingly is used or likes the goals of these leftist organizations. It actually goes on there and makes Republicans look bad, ones that are actually pursuing what the people want. But, so Senator Cotton, though, he goes on MSNBC talking about the RAISE Act, does a really good job. And there's interesting stuff on Facebook. And some people are upset about it, but most people are not. I don't know if they're Arkansans or not, but I know that there's a lot of people posting and commenting on Tom Cotton's Facebook page just thanking him for standing up, thanking him for actually doing something. One of the comments was, thank goodness you're a Republican and you're actually doing something. Then there were some other good predictions of saying this is a great idea, but I'm not sure the Republican Party establishment like Mitch McConnell and others will get on board with this. But I will just say, I said this yesterday, I think this RAISE Act stuff with the immigration is Senator Tom Cotton's certainly one of his top moments since he's been elected senator. Joe, let's go to Tucker Carlson over here. We got this video pulled up. Let's go to Tucker Carlson asking Senator Tom Cotton a question last night on Tucker Carlson Tonight. Listen to this.
Do you think there's a direct connection between mass immigration and low wages?
No doubt, Tucker. The law of supply and demand applies to the labor market just like it does every other market.
So it hasn't been repealed for the purpose of immigration?
Even though some Republicans feel like it doesn't apply there. Look, over the last 40 years, my lifetime, you've seen a quadrupling of the number of foreign-born residents in our country. The vast majority of those, 14 out of 15 today, come here not based on their skills or their education or their English language ability, on some other category. They're by definition unskilled and low skilled. In that 40-year window, if you have a high school degree or less, your wages have fallen. If you have more than that, so if you're not competing with those very same immigrants, your wages have increased. So there's a direct correlation between the mass unskilled, low-skilled migration we've seen over the last few decades and stagnant wages and standards of living for working Americans.
Wouldn't it be clarifying to import, I don't know, lobbyists, for example, from abroad who would work for less than our lobbyists? Maybe that, or United States senators. Don't you think that might change some minds?
Lobbyists, lawyers, there's no end of this that you could import people to compete directly against people in Washington, D.C., and they might sing a different tune. But there's just simply no doubt that people who come here who are unskilled and low-skilled have a direct impact on the wages of Americans, whether their ancestors came over on the Mayflower or whether they just took the oath of citizenship, who are competing for those very same jobs.
So, right, Senator Perdue, about 60...
I'll pick this back up here in a minute, but I just want to say a few things. So the left is doing what the left's supposed to do when people actually advocate for real conservative reform. Okay, they're freaking out. We read your tweet yesterday where they, accused Tom Cotton of being a racist. Oh, this is so racist. I mean, it's just pathetic and ridiculous what they're saying. But I'll tell you this. Some of them are now saying, and now keep in mind, the audio that we played you from the press conference of Senator Cotton yesterday, he talked about how welfare, low-skilled immigrants coming to this country that then get here and go on welfare is a bad thing. And we need to avoid that, okay? Keep that in mind, because what the left is now saying is, here's Molly. Molly on Tom Cotton's Facebook writes, "Who do you think you're fooling? This isn't about raising wages for American workers. You think farms are going to suddenly pay $15 an hour for picking fruit, and Americans are going to want those jobs? Doubt it." So, she says that she doubts, first of all, that wages would increase. Well, it's called supply and demand. You just heard Senator Cotton talk about it. It's just like any other industry, right? If there are fewer workers, then you're more valuable, right? It's like it's just supply and demand. It's just what it is. That's just how it goes. But listen to this. Here's my point on that, because I love it when they say this. Americans are going to want to pick fruit? You really think Americans are going to want to pick fruit? Now, first of all, that's pretty elitist when you think about it. Like, yeah, we're Americans. We don't do manual labor. We leave that for what? Illegal immigrants who are, a permanent underclass? Is that what we want? No, that's not what we want at all. But you know why Americans may not want jobs like picking fruit? It's a very easy answer. Because that's what they say. Well, illegal immigration, they're doing the jobs Americans just won't do. Well, that's because we pay Americans to not do those jobs. Our welfare system pays Americans to not go and do those jobs. Because if you're hungry, if you don't have all this free stuff and Obama phones and everything else, and you are able to work, we're not talking about the truly needy. We're not talking about the disabled. We're not talking about the blind. We're not talking about the elderly. We're talking about able to work adults who don't need to go pick fruit, who don't need to go do any of those things, because there's plenty of ways to do nothing and be taken care of and have an air conditioning living quarters and have a television and have a cell phone that connects to the internet that has all of human history's information on it at the touch of a button, right? Why would you want to go do those things? So Ben Franklin said you had to be uncomfortable, that the poor should be made should not be comfortable in their poverty. That implies that there has to be a little bit of uncomfort. And you know what that uncomfort is? It's called incentive. It's like, oh, wow, I got bills to pay. Or, oh, wow, I need to put food on the table, and so I'm going to go out and pick berries. I'm going to go out and pick fruit. I'm going to do whatever I can. There are people, by the way, there are Americans, I know some of them, who go and do those things still today because they're industrious and because they want to work. It's just a shame. I mean, it's an insult of our American ingenuity and work ethic to say, well, you really think the wages are going to increase? Do you really think Americans would want to do that? Well, look, if we have, this goes back to Tom Cotton's welfare comment from yesterday about how we don't want immigrants to be on welfare. We don't want able-bodied Americans to be on welfare either. If you stop paying people to not work, then maybe they'll go to work. And it's really no maybe about it. It's called survival. I thought the left is all about the, Anyway, it's just a very logical conclusion to reach. But a lot of people don't want to do that. They get accused of being mean or whatever. Again, if you're truly needy, if you truly need it, we can get you there. We can help you. If you're able to work, you're just creating incentives that set up generations of people to be trapped in their economic circumstances. And is that the goal? That surely can't be the goal. I know that's not the goal of the people who are voting for this stuff. They think, well, the best intentions. Sometimes I wonder, though, the people at the top that just want the power, do they want permanent dependency and a permanent underclass? I know Obamacare wasn't about health care. It was about dependency. That's what I believe firmly. We have to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. Back in just a moment. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
Conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get
Nephewed. Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
It came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you. Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions. Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody. Paul Harrell, your voice for limited government and small business in Arkansas.
I like it. I like it. All right, 870, excuse me, 275-9799. Somebody writes in, who do we have? Give us your name and your county. When you write in, or when you call in, we'll get it. But when you call us, please tell us your name and your county. And if you don't mind, how you're listening. Somebody writes about John McCain. Okay, if we can be forgiven for past mistakes, can we not be held accountable for the mistakes we make now? ? I believe this applies to McCain. I've read that a couple times. I'm not sure the point that you're making there. All I know is, Senator McCain, the fallout of what he did last week is still just immense to me. It really, truly is. On the immigration stuff, if the U.S. wasn't, but Mexico and Central American countries were welfare states, those people wouldn't come here. That's interesting. Well, there's a difference. You got. That's not entirely. You got to look at the currency different, equation there. You have a lot of people who do come here because it's a good country, Yes, there are people certainly who come here illegally because of a welfare state, no question. There's also people that just come here because they are hard workers, and it's why we should have... I can't blame them for coming to a better work environment. I can't blame them for... if you're in a terrible, impoverished country, you can't blame them. They're still illegal, though. Right? They're still breaking the law. And it's our responsibility to secure our own country. The government has abdicated its main responsibility. It's crazy. Think about the contrast here. When the United States government abdicates its first responsibility to secure our country, to secure our borders, to control who gets to come here and who doesn't, while at the same time they create new responsibilities and new rights like the right to health care, it just doesn't make any sense.
rights they have no business granting that they can't actually grant, and then they abdicate their real responsibilities. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Of that, we'll give a phone number of the show phone number of 275 then see 9799. Okay. All right, so who am I nominating? Okay. Who am I going to nominate for a top Democrat? James. And we're going to scroll over here. Sturch. Now, James Sturch is actually a Republican, but I'm nominating him. I think he deserves a top Democrat award. Okay. I don't have his address. I do have his contact number, but I don't know. Should I put it here for you guys? I don't think so. But why am I nominating State Representative James Sturch for a Democrat Party award? Okay. Let me write this out for them. James took to the floor. I'd say no. James took to the House floor for the first time. Excuse my typing skills. For the first time to speak against the Republican school choice bill. That was seriously, that was the first time State Representative James Sturch ever took to the floor of the House to speak for or against something. So he was speaking against the Republican school choice bill. Okay. And then we say, and I'm going to say here, way to go, James, because this is a Democrat award list, right? Okay. But then I'm going to say this. His liberal credentials don't end there. When you recommend somebody for awards, you can never use too many exclamation points. A lot of people don't know that. He also voted for tax increases. Oh, messed up there. Also voted for tax increases, we'll say to make, or let's just say this, to increase the size of government. There we go. All right, so to recap. Why am I nominating this person is what the Democrat website is asking me. I'm saying James took to the House floor for the first time to speak against the Republican school choice bill. Way to go, James. His liberal credentials don't end there. He also voted for tax increases to increase the size of government. I'm using tax increases and then increase. I don't like that. I don't know what that's called, but that's not a good thing. So he also voted for tax increases to grow the size of government. I like it. All right, so now we got to decide how we're going to nominate. Please select the award. Gracie Carnes, Democratic Woman of the Year. No, I mean, should I nominate James Sturch to be the Democratic Woman of the Year? Maybe. Let's see. Harold Jinks, Democratic Man of the Year. Jeffrey Ledbetter, Young Democrat of the Year. Oh, no, seriously, though, because James Sturch is a young up-and-comer. I think he should – I think the Young Democrat. I think the Young Democrat of the Year, James Sturch would be good. And then – so the Jeffrey –
welcome back to the program. It is the Paul Harrell program. Thanks so much for being with us. Hey, I want to welcome back to the show. We've got Mr. Jerry Cox is back with us. Always a pleasure to have him on, the president of the Family Council Action Committee. Jerry, welcome back, sir.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So
tell us, the big news is that we have Family Council Action coming out with their legislative report card, 2017 legislative report card. I'm sure you're pretty excited about it.
Oh, yeah. I tell you, this is the first one of these that we have done, but the reason we did this is when I travel the state of Arkansas, people always ask me, how's my guy doing? Meaning, how is my state representative or my state senator doing down in Little Rock? And, you know, a lot of times I say, oh, I think they're doing great, or, yeah, pretty good, or not so good. And so this report card just tells, you know, well, they got an A, they got a B, they got a C, they got a D, or they got an F. And what we ended up doing, Paul, is we, Family Council, was active on 25 different bills in the House and 25 different bills in the Senate. So he said, okay, let's give 4 points for each vote that agreed with us on those bills, and, you know, 100 points possible. Standard grading scale, you know, anything 90 and above is an A, any below 60 is an F. You know, and we gave A, B, C, D, F grades based on how they did. And, you know, I was surprised, actually, because some of the people that I thought would make an A ended up making low B.
Yeah.
And some people I thought might make a C ended up making A's. And that's the good thing about having an objective scoring method, because our opinions don't enter into it. It's really how they voted on the bills that were of importance to us.
Yeah.
And I think of importance to a lot of other folks around the state, because it's all the pro-life bills, it's the homeschool bills, it's ones related to tort reform and, you know, marijuana issues, marriage issues, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So it's those social moral issues, really.
I just want to go down the list real quick of those who got A's, and that we're talking 90 or above. Starting with the top, we have from Senate District 19, Senator Linda Collins Smith at 96% A, tied with Senator Larry Teague, a Democrat, at 96. And that's really interesting. I mean, I'm sure, because when Conduit for Commerce released their scorecard, there was just a ton of people in maybe the Republican Party that, you know, disagreed with it, wanted to throw stones at it or whatever. And I don't know if you guys are going to get that kind of criticism as well, but I would say with two Democrats, because Eddie Cheatham is number 3 on the list with 95%, also a Democrat. But again, I think that speaks to your objectivity, Jerry.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't expect those two guys to get A's, but they did. They voted. At the end of the day, they didn't bluster and strut around and talk about how, you know, conservative they are. They just voted that way. You know, and I can't. You know, I can't not give them a good grade. I mean, I wouldn't be honest. If, people say, "Well, how dare you give an A to a Democrat?" Well, they earned it. They earned it by how they voted, and that's you know, it may be like people look at a class of kids in school and say, "Well, that kid over there, I don't like that student," but he might still make an A, and so you give him his A and go on. And I happen to like both of those guys. They're very likable, but a lot of people think that we're some extension of the Republican Party, and we're just not. And you know, if I was, I sure wouldn't have been giving two Democrats A's.
Yeah.
But they deserve it. They earned it.
Yeah. And again, you know, you were just saying, hey, look, this is just about the bills. This is how you voted. I want to finish up with this list. So at the top, Senator Linda Collins Smith, Senators Larry Teague, Eddie Cheatham, Terry Rice, David Sanders, Representative Stephen Meeks, Representative Clint Penzo. Then Senators Cecile Bledsoe and Scott Flippo getting A's. Representative Andy Mayberry, Senator Gary Stubblefield with the 91, and then State Representative Charlotte Douglas with the 90. From there you get to the B's, but those are, you know, the ones who got A's. And I love what you say here. I believe it's towards the bottom. Well, no, I don't have the statement. Maybe it was, but you basically say, look, this is just a reflection of how you voted. Sometimes, you get pushback on that. Sometimes people don't like to be told how they voted. At least that's my experience, Jerry. What about yours?
Well, yeah, and so there are some people that might say, well, I'm a better Christian than so-and-so, or I'm more conservative than so-and-so, or I go to church more than so-and-so does. Or they might even say, well, that guy, goes out here and drinks at the bar. And I'm like, I'm not grading them on whether they drink at the bar or not. I'm grading them on how they voted on these issues that were of importance to us. Mm-hmm. And it's not my place to go out and grade them on their morals or how good a Christian they are or any of those things, although I hope that they are moral. I hope they are Christian. They need to be. But I'm not grading them on that. And so this is how they voted. But, that's really, when you come right down to the nut of what it is, that's what you're there for as a lawmaker. You're there to cast votes. And how you vote makes a difference. And people want to know, how did you vote? And so that's what this tells, is how they voted.
So the website, folks, if you guys want to check this out for yourself, is arkansasreport.com. And then you have several options. You can click to see the report. And if you want to see the bills that they scored, you go to the report card, and then you click individually on the representative's name. So we just clicked on Senator Linda Collins Smith. And then, of course, you can see all of the votes that they scored. And you make it pretty easy, pretty simple. You say how they voted on each one, and then in parentheses you say whether Family Council considers that a good vote or a bad vote. But I want to focus on one bill you scored in particular that has a lot of Republican Party establishment support, and that is SJR 8. It is called a tort reform measure, and we will be voting, the people will be voting on this, not this coming November, but next November in 2018. And so I'm just curious, can I get your take on why you thought it was a bad bill? So in this case, Senator Linda Collins Smith voted against it, which Family Council said was a good thing. Tell us about that, Jerry Cox.
Well, yes. SJR 8 is so-called tort reform. I think we would all say there are too many frivolous lawsuits, too many greedy lawyers out there looking to make a buck. There's just too much of that stuff going on. So there's good tort reform, and there's not so good tort reform. SJR 8 is not good tort reform because it screws it down so tight that I fear that nursing homes and other institutions that care for old people, disabled people, may be so unlikely to get sued if they mistreat somebody that they may end up compromising care. So they look over there and say, yeah, that person over there's got bed sores, but the most they can sue me for is this much, and we're good, and I'm just going to let that go. And they cut back on staff and that sort of thing. So I think we do need tort reform. We supported tort reform during the session, but we did not support this one because I think it allows nursing homes and others to reduce staff, compromise care, and in the end, I'm afraid disabled people and old people may end up being the ones that suffer because of it.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, a fear of a lawsuit really does make people behave a lot of times, and I think we need to maintain that.
Yeah. And then, of course, you also have damages. In SJR 8, you're going to have somebody, if they are a victim, they may not be able to get compensated fairly for what happened to them.
Yeah.
That's a big part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's a child that has no earning ability, stay-at-home mom who doesn't have a job, all those folks are devalued under SJR 8 if they're killed or injured. They can't collect as much in non-economic damages, and I think that's an important part of that. So, yeah, there's a lot. We could do a whole program, on tort reform and the difference between good and bad tort reform, but just understand that we as an organization did support good tort reform, but we do not support SJR 8.
Yeah.
And so that's the way that came out.
It's going to be a battle.
But,
going to be a battle next year.
Yeah, absolutely. But I hope that this is a tool that voters can use in addition to our voter guide that surveys people before they run for office to see what they tell us they're going to do. This really tells you what they did. This tells you if they kept their promise or not. And so a person could take this and put it alongside our voter guide and say, okay, he said he was for this before he got elected, but after he got elected, he turned around and voted just the opposite. I don't know if I like that or not. And I think you could find some of that if you compared the two.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, I think that's certainly something that I want to do. I'd love to compare the two because your surveys that you send out are so I would just say, well respected. It's a good thing. You send them out. They send their responses, and then you print the voter guide saying, hey, these people. And then you kind of know there's some people that don't even fill them out, and you're like, okay, most of the time those are Democrats. And so it's a good thing. I definitely want to do that, Jerry. I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
So
that's what we want to do is give people more tools to be able to see how their lawmakers vote. And you know what? A lot of these folks are my friends, and I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to be your friend. I'm going to cheer you on every step of the way. I'm going to help you every way I can, but I will hold you accountable for your votes because people want to know how you voted, and I'm that's part of my job is to do that.
What do you think out of these bills that you scored? What was the biggest victory? And you can define victory as getting something passed, or you can define victory as stopping something from getting passed. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I think collectively the pro-life bills that we worked on were the victory of the session. Because, quite frankly, I think the abortion facility down here in Little Rock is probably on the verge of closing. They've lost about 25% of their business in the last 2 years. And these lawsuits that Planned Parenthood and the abortion clinic and ACLU have filed to try to kill off these good pro-life laws that we just got passed, I think is a desperation move on their part just for them to try to survive. Because even in their pleadings before the court, they said, if these laws go into effect, we will have to close our doors. And so I think they're feeling the pinch on that. But see, it's my hope that these laws will reduce the demand for abortion, where people will say, you know what, if it's not legal, then I ain't doing it. I'm going to put my child up for adoption, or we'll make another choice that's a good choice, and we won't do an abortion. And so I think we're making great strides there, and I think when those cases go to the Eighth Circuit, I think we're going to prevail in a bunch of them, and I think we're going to continue to see the number of abortions go down here in Arkansas.
Very well said, Mr. Jerry Cox with the Family Council Action Committee. We appreciate it very much. Again, folks, it's ArkansasReport.com. Check out this great legislative scorecard. It's a resource, and I'm certainly going to be comparing the surveys because I'm interested now. I'd love to do that. I really appreciate it, Jerry.
Okay, have a good day.
All righty, you too, sir.
All right.
Folks, we're going to take a break. The Liberty Machine rolls on. Going to be back, though, in just a minute. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
Welcome to Common Sense and Liberty. I'm Donnie Copeland. Well, there's been a little bit of stirring going on in political circles of late, and that is a result of Conduit from Northwest Arkansas releasing their legislative scorecard. And basically, this is just an indication or a scoring of how your legislator voted in this past legislative session. Now, I don't know why some legislators act get surprised. I don't know why some got upset. I mean, if you voted conservative, you got a good score. If you voted liberal, you got a terrible score. If you voted somewhere in the middle, you got a score somewhere in the middle. And so how to fix that next time is just vote like the Republican platform, and then vote like you told the people who elected you that you would vote, and you won't be surprised next time. This is Donnie Copeland for Common Sense and Liberty.
Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to talk radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise. I saw, Joe, seriously, you're going to love this. I got tagged in this photo this morning. My family member tagged me in this photo, and it's a fire pit. It's the coolest fire pit I think you'll ever see. Have you seen it? I got to know if it's popular, making the rounds. It's this piece of metal. So it's a fire pit that essentially looks like the Death Star from Return of the Jedi, the one that's under construction. You know what I mean? And so it's got, it's like half complete, and then there's the hollow half, and then at the bottom you got the fire. But if you it looks like an exploding Death Star when there's a fire in it. And you've got, the only thing is I don't know how practical it is. I love practical things. I don't know how practical it is but they did show somebody sitting on the metal side of the fire, and acting like they were warming their feet. But but I'm just like, how is that? Because there are holes on that side, so I guess the heat can move through it. But it's a really cool piece.
Wait, can you? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
My mic wasn't loud enough. Okay, so like with the metal side,
yeah,
since it conducts the heat, you can stick your feet close to it, but it won't like burn your feet or anything. But it heats your feet up just enough where the other side you have the fire coming out.
Okay, so this. You've already. I'm saying you've already thought of this.
I understand the. Like when I was in college, I was a chemistry major for a little while, so I kind of understand how heat works in the terms of metal.
Yeah, obviously it could warm your feet. I just thought it was, I don't know, it kind of defeats the purpose of a campfire. But it's really cool. It's up there with just little novelty things that I would love to have, like Aragorn's sword, the Death Star fire pit, and like a flex capacitor,
bug zapper,
like an actual flex capacitor. No, like not the bug zapper, but the actual one. Okay, folks, send us a text message. Give us a phone call, 870-275-9799. That is the telephone number to contribute to the program. I want to go over a little bit more the Family Council legislative scorecard, okay? Because I want to talk about some of the folks that have named this. Now, one of the things that Jerry Cox said that I found really comical, really humorous, was the fact that you had two Democrats, okay, who are in the top three. Think about that. Two Democrats who are in the top three of their legislative report card for 2017. Now, the first one is a Republican, Senator Linda Collins-Smith at 96%, but then you get Senator Larry Teague at 96%, and then Senator Eddie Cheatham. Larry Teague and Eddie Cheatham are Democrats. Now, technically, Republican Terry Rice would be tied for second. So you've got Larry Teague and Linda Collins-Smith are tied for first, and you got a Republican and a Democrat tied for first. Then you got Eddie Cheatham, a Democrat, and Terry Rice, a Republican, tied for second. And but anyway, so the interesting thing here is what Jerry Cox just said was, this is how you actually voted. And some of these guys who are at the top of the list didn't go around telling everybody how conservative they were. They didn't strut around telling everybody how conservative they were. No, they actually went out there and voted. Throw the list up there, Joe, so people can see this who are watching, because I want you to see this. All right, so you look at this. Those are all the ones that got A. Just missing the cutoff for the A, you've got Senator Alan Clark, who comes in with a B at 88%. And you got some good people on this list, right? But I just want to focus on where's James Sturch at? Oh, there he is. James Sturch coming in with a B. All right, an 80, barely a B. James Sturch versus Linda Collins Smith, who has not announced for re-election yet, but if she does, she'll be facing James Sturch in a primary. I don't know. That's just a huge gap there. So this is a report card on social issues. Social issues are, from a conservative standpoint, pretty much about, the Family Council is about family values, traditional American values. And Linda Collins Smith coming in at the top of the heap here. Really, really good stuff versus her potential opponent, if she does run, of James Sturch with just barely a B. But then look at this. I mean, some of these are interesting to me. If you look at who got C's, I mean, who dropped down to a C here? Bob Ballinger with a C. That's strange to me. John Cooper with a C at 79%. And you have others, that you wouldn't think would be weak on the social issues. Look, most of the criticism that you hear on this program, because I'm a limited government guy, and I've told you before that economic freedom is a prerequisite for all other freedoms. Look, I find it very interesting that we were going to see some Republicans here that maybe they might be weak on the economic issues, the tax issues, the limited government issues, and the social issues. I can understand, I can understand being weak on. I mean, I'm going to give you grief for it, but be weak on the economic issues, but you're real strong on the social issues. I can understand the reverse of that, being really strong on the economic issues and very, very weak on the social issues. Although I'll tell you this much. Most of the time, those senators and those representatives who are strong on the social issues, strong on the economic issues, are actually, they end up ranking better than those who claim to be, who are strong on the social issues, who claim to be. I mean, for example, here, one of the most outspoken social conservatives, Jason Rapert. What did he rank? So he got a B. Now, that's very interesting to me. State Senator from District 35, Jason Rapert, getting a B. And look at Dan. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Look at Dan Douglas. 65%. State Representative Dan Douglas coming in with a D. A middle-of-the-pack D. Well, not middle of the pack, but you know what I mean. 65%. Wow, that is solid right there. That is a solid D. What about Fs? What are we doing here? Where are our Fs? D. So I'm going to read who got Fs. Most of them are Democrats. Senator Will Bond, a Democrat, getting an F. Representative Roger Lynch, a Republican, getting an F. Joyce Elliott, a Democrat, F. Uvalde Lindsay, Democrat, F. David Fielding, Democrat, F. Milton Nix, Democrat, F. Vivian Flowers with an F. They're Democrats. The rest of these are Democrats. No, actually. Oh, yeah, they're all Democrats. I'm making sure. Stephanie Flowers with an F. She's the lowest. Senator Stephanie Flowers, 41% F. We've got to take a break. We've got one more hour coming your way next. It's one thing to strut and say you're conservative on social issues and economic issues. It's another thing to actually vote that way. We're finding that out with not just this scorecard, but others. Back in a minute.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Ledbetter, Young Democrat of the Year. That's what we're submitting him as. And then what does it say? Let's go look at the description of the Young Democrat of the Year. Okay. The Pulaski County Democratic Committee presents the Jeffrey Ledbetter Award to the outstanding young Democrat who shares the same passion and dedication of his namesake. Jeffrey Ledbetter was the son of Carl and Brownie Ledbetter. He followed in his family footsteps and was politically active at an early age. He participated in numerous political campaigns. He was always involved in the Young Democrats. This award should reflect an enthusiasm and idealism that is inherent in youth and is present when one thinks of Jeffrey Ledbetter. Anyway, we're nominating James Sturch for that award. It's the Young Democrat Award. That's what he's getting. And let's see. Do we have everything else? So I, Paul Harrell, nominate James Sturch for the 2017 Clinton Dinner Awards to receive the Jeffrey Ledbetter Young Democrat of the Year Award. And we click Submit. And thank you. Sweet. There we go. Hey, folks, if you want to do the same thing, I just want you to know the deadline for submitting big government Republicans to get Democrat awards, that's what I would suggest that you would do. The deadline for the award nominations is by 5 p.m. on Monday, July the 3rd. Nominations will not be accepted after the deadline. Okay? So what I'm going to do during the break here is I'm going to take this submission link, right, and I'm going to go ahead and put it up on our Facebook page. We'll do that right during the break. Facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. That's Facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. And I may have to submit somebody. I don't know. Should I submit Dan Douglas on this thing? I really think maybe the next one, the next person that I submit might need to be him. What do you think? 870-275-9799.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit
All
Media
right,
Group.
welcome back. This is hour number 2. My name is Paul. Thank you so much for being with us today. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Let's go to our good friend. We got former state representative Donnie Copeland is on the line with us. Donnie, it's great to have you back on, sir. How you been?
Oh, doing wonderful, Paul. Thank you for having me, man.
Yes, sir. I'm glad that you could come on. I wanted to get your comments. I've got a whiteboard here. Cut, shift, raise. That's essentially, I feel like, the three options of this tax farce. It met yesterday for the first time. I don't think they're going to cut government. They might shift things around, but I definitely think they really want to raise their taxes. And all of the headlines, or all the substance, when you actually read between the lines about what these people are saying now, the Jim Hendrens of the world, the Jeremy Gillums, it really just screams that they now, are really trying to, recharacterize some of the promises they made at the beginning of the session, which is kind of par for the course. And I'm going to let you talk here in a minute, Donnie. But I want to.
No, that's fine.
I want to let you listen. This is Jeremy Gillum. Go ahead. This is Jeremy Gillum from the tax farce yesterday. At the very beginning, he opened and he felt the need to clarify what they were all there for. Go ahead, Joe, when you're ready.
It's going to be, I think, a very robust debate that will take place over the next year and a half as to our tax policy here in Arkansas. And I know a lot has been kind of written about the mandate, so to speak. And it seems to always be mentioned that it's about which tax cuts are going to be put forward in the next General Assembly. And I think you are all familiar with the fact that that is not necessarily the overriding mandate of this task force, but it's to look at reform and relief and making Arkansas competitive.
All right, stop. All right, so, Donnie, you heard him say that there, and it's not a great piece of audio, but he says all of the news media is about what tax cuts that we're going to be delivered to the General Assembly next go-around. He says, I think everybody here knows that that's not necessarily the mandate
for tax cuts. You served under Jeremy Gillum. What are your thoughts about all that?
Yeah, Jeremy's getting his marching orders from the governor. Make no mistake about it. I've seen it on numerous occasions that, at the end of the day, Jeremy's going to do what the governor asks, what he wants. That's bottom line. Here's a question I think the listeners need to ask themselves. What listener, what person in their right mind would say, okay, I'm getting ready to make some changes in my life. Maybe I'm retiring. Maybe I'm changing careers. And you know what? I think I'll just focus solely on what my income is. I'm not even going to focus on, do I need to downsize my house, downsize my car note, pay off my car. The outgo is never considered only the income side, and that's what we have in state government. They only talk about the government side, and here's why. They can shift and move. What were your three characterizations there again? Shift.
Cut, shift, raise.
Yeah, cut, shift, and raise. And all three of those, I mean, we saw it. We see it in Kansas. We've seen it in another state comes to mind. It slips my mind right now. I think Louisiana is another one.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul. This is hour number 2, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. And that sound means it's time for one of our special segments. It's called our Conservative Future segment, where we highlight a young conservative here in Arkansas, and I just want to welcome to the program, introduce you to Mr. Trey Rosenbaum joins us. Trey, welcome to the Paul Harrell Program.
Hey, Paul, good to be with you, man.
Yes, sir. So first off, tell everybody how old you are.
I am 28, just turned 28.
All right, 28 years old. Okay, so tell us, you're first of all, tell us what you do, too, as well, please.
Okay, I am actually, as of a few weeks ago, unemployed, but hoping to be starting a new job soon. So in the works interview process, getting that all worked out.
That's fantastic.
I have been in the past worked in politics and worked in the auto parts world.
Okay, in the auto parts world. All right, so you identify, though, and I say this really hilariously because of the way it's being used, but you self-identify as a conservative. Is that right, Trey?
Most definitely. Definitely.
So how did that happen? How you're 28 years old, and a lot of times you don't find young conservatives. The younger you are, you tend to be more liberal. So tell us about how you arrived where you are today.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I had bad influences in my house in the form of my parents. They were both their first president to vote for was the great Ronald Reagan, and they kind of raised me in a household where those ideals and those political beliefs were taught. And I was blessed to be kind of a combination of go to a private Christian school and homeschool. And then on top of that, I also got to go to a public community college while I was in high school. And so that always kind of shaped my views. And again, it started at home. And my dad decided to run for state representative when I was 12. And I'd been interested in politics up until then. I thought they were kind of cool, mainly because my dad thought they were cool. But when he got in, I really just went full bore in. And there's something really important to know. This was 2002. So Arkansas in 2002, which I'm sure many of your listeners remember, being a conservative or a Republican in Arkansas was not a popular thing. There were only a handful of conservative legislators. And my dad, even though his district was about 50-50 Republican, it really leaned more Democrat. And he was young. He was in his early 30s, father of four, and he just decided to kind of take a leap. And, hey, I've been a small business owner. I've worked in the public and the private sector, and it's time to take my experience to the House in Little Rock. And that really kind of inspired me. I got involved in his campaign, and kind of one thing led to another. Got involved in more campaigns after that in high school, and then when I got to college, I got involved in college Republicans, and that just kind of fueled the fire even more.
I heard that a lot.
Ended up. Oh yeah, college Republicans is great, and it kind of gave me a group of people outside of my my Bible study group. It kind of gave me a group of people that, while I wanted to see different cultures and different ideas, it gave me a group of, for lack of a better term, safe people to really talk about stuff with, bounce ideas off of, and kind of grow with as a conservative. And it kind of all that culminated when I got a job working for now Senator Tom Cotton, who you're hard pressed to find somebody in the Senate that is more conservative.
Yes.
And
hey, have you been following?
Awesome.
You've been following the RAISE Act and him up there with Donald Trump and talking about how we got to curb our immigration system, make it more merit based. Isn't that fantastic?
I really agree with it. I think it's a great move on his part. Actually, just before the show, was reading up on it. I've been on the road most of today, but I think I'm not surprised to see something like that come from Tom, because when we sent Tom to D.C., we truly sent one of the smartest, brightest Arkansans there. And he really researches subjects. He surrounds himself with people that are smarter than he is, and he bounces ideas off folks. And getting to work for him, getting to see that kind of stuff was just awesome. And his immigration, it's funny because immigration wasn't a big deal when I worked for Tom, but it has become as the years have kind of drug on. And I love the RAISE Act, because I look at it and I go, this is a great balance between making sure that we help the people that want to come here and better themselves, because that's very, very important, but vice versa, that we respect our laws and that we, in some ways, also protect American jobs. And
Absolutely.
I think it's a great compromise.
We're talking with Mr. Trey Rosenbaum. He is a young conservative, 28 years old. Hey, what part of Arkansas? You say you're on the road, so what part of Arkansas are you in? Are you in the state today?
I actually am in the liberal bastion of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, no.
So coming out here to visit some friends and all that kind of stuff. But I am from West Little Rock.
Okay, West Little Rock. Okay. All right, so Trey, tell us, this is kind of a general question, but when I say, conservatism, or you are a conservative, or I kind of have to qualify that these days with the other phrase, limited government conservatism. What does that mean to you in a nutshell?
Conservatism is, for me, a set of ideals I think best put forth by, again, to sound like a typical conservative, Ronald Reagan. It's limited government, it's small government, it's making government work for the people without robbing the very people that it's trying to help. I think it's low taxes. I think it is freedom. I think probably the best word to sum it up is freedom. One of my friends, I got several friends who are legislators, and was talking to one of them the other day, and I said, man, when you go to the House and the Senate, when you're voting, I said, you really need to think about every bill you're voting. How does this advance freedom and limit government every single time? Because if you're not looking at that, then you can't call yourself a conservative.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just the really core principle of it is, how are we limiting government and getting government out of the way of capitalism and free enterprise, really unleashing the best in people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great definition of it for sure. And what that really kind of makes me realize, and said this before, but specifically with Arkansas politics and what's going on in Little Rock and the massive Republican majorities that we have, there's just such an opportunity to reform and to limit government, to show people what more liberty does instead of force. And So I'd love to get your thoughts on maybe the state of Arkansas politics, specifically in the Republican Party, which is the party where conservatism, historically has existed. How does the Republican Party, protect its image from, growing, big government politicians, tax and spend politicians in the party? How do they, if they're advocating for higher taxes like we've seen, how does the Republican Party survive out of all of this?
Paul, great question, man. I've been very frustrated with the Republican majorities in Little Rock. They are squandering an incredible opportunity to make a great state even greater. And there have been so many side issues, so many social issues, so many issues that don't advance freedom. They don't help anybody. They're not beneficial. All it is political grandstanding. And it's been very frustrating to see Republicans forget where we came from. I look at somebody like my dad, who at one point was one of only 18 Republicans, yet was able to pass a concealed carry bill that broadened our concealed carry rights in Arkansas, actually passed even other states that were Republican controlled. He did that through sitting down with other people and going, hey, what can I do to make this work? And, the Republicans in Little Rock have forgotten how to do that. There's a difference between negotiating and compromise. Negotiating means everybody sits down at the table, they throw everything out, and they come up with something that's going to work at least somewhat okay for everybody. Compromise means one person gets everything and the other person gets nothing, and they lack the ability to do that. And I think that all culminated with the private option. The private option is a brilliant example of government overreach and of Republicans trying to solve a problem and in reality making it worse.
Yeah.
And so I really hope to see Republicans do something, because I look back at this last session, and there's just there was no good that came out of it. I'm still trying to figure out, okay, what's better, because my income taxes really haven't gone down. Sales taxes on a local level are still high. Our unemployment's great. I do appreciate that, but at the same time, it still could be better. Our job environment could be better. What are you doing to keep young conservatives, or just young people in period, in the state? What are you doing to make our laws where they get out of the way of businesses trying to grow here in the state? So I think they're squandering, again, an opportunity to really go forward. And I don't want to badmouth anybody. I think there's some really great legislators in the House that are trying, and they're working hard.
Yeah,
I think there are some others that have.
The problem,
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a big problem. And some of the best ones had to fight off tax increases. Some of the best ones were handicapped by what I would say was, a misguided leadership that ended up giving you 11 Democrats on a Revenue and Tax Committee, which then meant that there was going to be no people voting on the record from a conservative tax policy standpoint. Conservatives could. It was a faulty errand to go before that committee and try to get an actual tax cut passed, a real one, because the Democrats would have voted for it, or would have voted against it. So what you had was essentially the only tax policies that were going to ever even get voted on were the ones that the Republican leadership was going to have to make a deal with the Democrats to get it out of committee. And we had just a lot of defense, the good defense, when they were trying to raise their taxes. They succeeded some, but you're right, we do have good people down there, Trey, and I hope they continue to get recognized. But I don't understand why we continue to grow spending the way we're doing here, and we have this mentality where, okay, we want to cut taxes, but it's going to be a revenue neutral tax cut. We want to protect what the government's getting at all costs. And yeah, you said opportunity. That just certainly is what they're squandering there. And you feel free to comment more on that, but also comment on the Trump phenomenon and what that was like as a young conservative in the most historic election of my lifetime. It probably will be, the most historic election of your lifetime, because we're not that far apart in age.
Yeah. I'll go back real quick to just kind of what we were talking about with Little Rock. There's been so many missed opportunities, and I think what legislators forget is it is okay to go to the House and the Senate and not pass bills. If there's not a bill that's needed, if there's not a problem, if nothing needs to be fixed, then we don't have to fix it. And I know, in your own personal life, my own personal life, when we don't have money, what do? You cut your budget.
Yes.
And that means sometimes you have to sacrifice on things. And that's the problem is, man, government they're unable to push those pain points and to really kind of hurt a little bit, to make those cuts that hurt. So I hope to see us do that in Little Rock. But as far as Trump, Trump is a hard one for me. I lean probably more libertarian than most Republicans do, most conservatives do, again, because I'm very freedom, liberty minded. Trump was a hard one for me because I initially was a very big Rand Paul, Scott Walker, Ted Cruz guy.
Yeah,
I thought those
Rand
were
was
all excellent choices.
Rand was my first choice, and then I was
Yes.
with Ted Cruz, until the end.
Yeah, same here. Also, I thought Rubio was a good option as well, but Trump did something that was unprecedented, and I think what he did was he resonated with people that felt like they didn't have a voice. I'll use the example. I was talking with a gentleman. I was doing some work for him this last week, and he's in his 70s, and he was telling me about his dad. He used to be a union boss up north, and he said, my dad was a lifelong, staunch, yellow dog Democrat, never was going to vote for Republican. But he said, then Ronald Reagan came along, and he was listening to him and hearing him espouse these conservative ideas and really getting out there and connecting with the common man, the unheard voice. And he said his dad in 1980 became a Republican and voted Republican all the way until he died. And we have so many great conservative voices, but they're getting lost in the void. And I don't think Trump is that. What happened was unprecedented. I think he connected with a lot of people that we're unconnected with, but Trump doesn't know how to temper himself. And because he doesn't know how to temper what he says and his attitude, he's blowing a lot of opportunities. Republicans have a literal majority on everything. We control the House. We control the Senate. We, in many ways, control the Supreme Court. We control all these local houses. We have the presidency. And what are we getting done? We're focused on the Russia probe and transgender rights and, lack of tax cut. And somebody said a inappropriate word on television. We're not focused on the real issues that matter that affect everyday Americans, and that is tax cuts and health care.
Yeah.
And when
of course you got McCain, what about McCain? I mean, I kind of feel like on the health care thing, that was just the empire, if you will, just did not want to actually get rid of this government dependency that they've become accustomed to.
No, and that's the thing. Getting rid of it is going to hurt. That's all there is to it. It's going to hurt. There are people that are going to lose health care. It's going to be messy. But in the end, it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Because when I voted for these Republicans, when I got behind and worked for people like Tom Cotton and French Hill and all these guys, these excellent legislators we sent up there, the one thing I told all of them personally was get rid of Obamacare. Get rid of health care. Same here in the state. Stop expanding health care. And and as somebody right now that's been interviewing with other jobs, I'm noticing a trend in it that there's not a lot of benefits that companies offer anymore. And they're all telling me it's because our healthcare costs are so high and our tax burden is so high. So it's that trickle-down economics that Reagan was so good at espousing, that they don't understand that because they won't tackle those two big tough issues, we're having that problem on the bottom end. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to sit here and openly bash Trump. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of some of the things he said, and I'm not a fan of the way he does politics. I do admit that what happened was incredible. It was unlike anything we've ever seen.
I'm thankful for it.
I do want him.
I'm thankful, compared to the alternative. I mean, good grief.
Oh, listen. There is nothing better than yet another Clinton, and few people know that, like Arkansas. That said, there is going to have to be some leadership up there. I'm excited about General Mattis. I'm excited about Kelly. While I'm not military, many of my friends are military, and I like the military mindset on a lot of things, of discipline, getting things done, and making tough choices, and leading with the smartest person in the room. And so I hope that by surrounding himself with some of those people, it'll really kind of whip things into shape. And I like seeing him partner with people like Tom Cotton, who are tough, strong, proven leaders.
Me too. That's all the time we have. Trey Rosenbaum, it's been a pleasure to meet you, sir. Young conservative for our Conservative Future segment. Thanks so much for coming on, and I'd love to do it again soon sometime.
Paul, I really enjoy it, man. Have me on anytime. Love to discuss this stuff.
All righty. Thank you, sir, very much. Folks, we got to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group. Values, your ideals. The Paul Harrell program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, welcome back. Great interview. We appreciate Trey Rosenbaum stopping by, and really, really good. I mean, he's 28 years old, folks. That's why we call it the Conservative Future segment. That's a glimpse into Arkansas's future. Really excited about that. I've got some interesting articles I want to tackle when we come back for our next long segment, and they have to do with H.R. McMaster. That would be the head of the National Security Council. That'd be the guy that's supposed to work for Donald Trump. Some of these headlines are absolutely disturbing to me about what's going on. Really worried about it, if I'm going to be honest with you. And then we have tonight, Donald Trump, West Virginia governor, going to announce that he's switching parties from the Democrat governor of West Virginia, going to become a Republican with Donald Trump by his side. That's Jim Justice of West Virginia, elected last year, even as President Trump carried West Virginia by 42 points. He's expected to announce Thursday night at a rally with Trump that he is changing parties. He was known as a conservative Democrat. I don't know any of you Arkansas Democrats that have hope. Oh, we're gonna become the conservative Democrat Party again, and the blue dogs or the yellow dogs or whatever dog you want to be. Guess what? And this actually makes it harder on us limited government conservatives, because now, you have an R next to your name and people say, oh, okay, you must. It makes it harder to tell. It's wolf in sheep's clothing type stuff, but I don't know. I don't know about this West Virginia governor. I have known nothing about him other than he plans to switch with Donald Trump at his side this evening in West Virginia.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
And then we see it with Bush when he was in the White House. When you cut taxes to appease your base so you can get elected next time, and you don't cut the size of government, you create more problems, not less problems. Mm-hmm. And so, the hardest thing is not to cut taxes. The hardest thing is to cut the size of government. And here's why. You don't have anybody, the people that would be lobbying for you to cut taxes, they're all at work, and so are not cut taxes. So if you don't cut them, they're not going to be, calling your number by far and large. But if you start trying to cut government, there's people paid to make sure you don't cut their piece of the pie.
Yeah.
They're called lobbyists. Mm-hmm. And so therein lies the problem. And they can, and you're right, I know it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but this is a farce. It is a farce because they're going to meet for however long. They're going to get paid all this per diem to meet. At the end of the day, you could cut 5% of the employees of the state of Arkansas a year, and in 4 years cut 20% of the workforce and not fire one person because we have that much turnover a year. But they will not do it because of all the tentacles of lobbyists and special interests in state government.
You're exactly right. We're talking with former state representative Donnie Copeland. You mentioned the lobbyists, and I it comes to mind our friend, mutual friend Josh Waters from Political Strategies. He was on the program yesterday, but a few interviews back, when we got his impression of the session, it was his first time really in-depth down at the Marble Palace every day covering the session. He's in committee rooms. He's speaking on behalf of Conduit for Action and, economic freedom filter. Does it grow government? Does it spend money we don't have? Does it increase dependency on government? That's the defense of whether or not a piece of legislation is good or not. And Josh's impression was, yeah, there are special interests. Yeah, there are lobbyists. But people don't realize that one of the biggest lobbying arms down there is government itself. Are these lobbyists that are actually from the bureaucracies that are taxpayer funded, and they're trying to protect their existence.
That actually probably is the biggest lobbying arm. That is a great, great point. It is not the major corporations. The major corporations, the hospitals, is it Centene, whatever, of the world, the healthcare organizations, the nursing homes, in specific areas, he's right, they will come into play. But on the overall, it is government itself. It's education department. Look behind the Capitol. You got building after building. I mean, car after car there. Layers and layers of bureaucracy. That thing is like, it's like a medium-sized corporation. I'm talking about the education department, state education department. In and of itself is like some, mini Google campus back there. Well, guess what? They've got all kind of lobbyists up there making sure they don't get any of their pie cut. They're the ones that beat back the school choice because, man, they can't. They got $10,000 or $11,000 per student per year, and the schools are in a sinkhole, but they want more. And they've got 7 superintendents when 2 could do the job, and yet teachers are having to work to pay their own. A lot of them are.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality, building a liberty machine. Thank you so much for being with us. All right, so yesterday, Christina Wong over at Breitbart.com, the headline here, very interesting, about H.R. McMaster. This is the head of Donald Trump's National Security Council. Fired somebody for penning a memo mentioning the word globalists. A top official on the National Security Council was fired last month by National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, reportedly after he argued in a memo that President Trump's administration is under sustained attack from globalists and Islamists. Rich Higgins, a former Pentagon official who served in the NSC's Strategic Planning Office as a director for strategic planning, was fired back on July 21st. The Atlantic was the first that reported this. The memo was written in late May, described threats to the administration by globalists, bankers, and, quote, the deep state, and Islamists. Quote, here's a quote from the memo. The memo is actually a fascinating read, by the way. Quote, globalists and Islamists recognize that for their visions to succeed, America, both as an ideal and as a nation and political identity, must be destroyed. When's the last time you heard something like that on CNN? Higgins was called into the White House's council office 2 weeks ago and asked about the memo. Later that week, he was told by McMaster's deputy that he was losing his job. The memo compared what the Trump administration was facing to a Maoist insurgency. Quote, in Maoist insurgencies, the formation of a counter-state is essential to seizing state power. Functioning as a hostile, complete state acting within an existing state, it has an alternate infrastructure. Political warfare operates as one of the activities of the counter-state, end quote. More from the memo. Quote, because the left is aligned. Now, I want you to, when we interviewed Charles Fuquay back on Tuesday, we talked about why the left was aligned with radical Islamists. And as far as the defense, National Organization of Women not coming out and, saying how you guys are oppressing women in your countries. Listen to this from this memo. Quote, this guy lost his job. Now, this is what's interesting to me. I don't know why this guy lost his job if the reports are true because of writing this memo. Listen, quote, because the left is aligned with Islamist organizations at local, national, and international levels, recognition should be given to the fact that they seamlessly interpret through coordinated, synchronized, interactive narratives. These attack narratives are pervasive, full spectrum, and institutionalized at all levels. They operate in social media, television, the 24-hour news cycle, in all media, and are entrenched at the upper levels of the bureaucracies. End quote. Big stuff here. I don't know. Red flags going all in my mind. I don't know. It's very weird stuff. It goes on. Sources told The Atlantic that Higgins, the guy who got fired for writing what I just read to you, had also pushed to declassify documents having to do with radical Islam in Iran, including Presidential Study Directive 11 produced by the Obama administration before the Arab Spring, outlining unrest throughout the Middle East. The original narrative of the Arab Spring is some guy in Tunisia set himself on fire, and that's what started the revolution in Egypt. There's a big yada, yada, yada in the middle there, but you get the point. Next headline, okay? That's from Breitbart, but let's give you another source. Joe, go to the next one. Let's go to the Washington Free Beacon. Headline, McMaster on, quote, warpath, end quote, purges key Trump allies from the White House National Security Council. This is Adam Credo. An ongoing staffing purge being conducted by White House National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster has thrown the West Wing into chaos. Now, are you reading about this anywhere? Because I'm not. I mean, I'm hearing how John Kelly's trying to tighten the ship. Hope he does. I'm not reading about this anywhere, though. H.R. McMaster has thrown the West Wing into chaos, according to more than half a dozen Trump administration insiders who told the Washington Free Beacon that McMaster has been targeting longtime Trump loyalists who were clashing with career government staffers and holdovers from the Obama administration. The purge is part of a larger drama unfolding inside the administration between veteran Trump staffers committed to the president's campaign vision of draining the swamp in Washington and entrenched bureaucracies seeking to maintain control over policy decision-making, according to these sources. Now, if you ever had any doubt, which you shouldn't, that the executive branch is way too big already, we have people that control an awful lot of policy without any laws being passed. The Trump staffers fired by McMaster had repeatedly clashed with career government staffers and holdovers from the Obama administration on issues as diverse as military strategies for Syria and Afghanistan. Okay, red flag, we have foreign policy issues here. Sounds to me like we have people who are loyal to Trump that have a certain foreign policy perspective versus maybe McMaster who doesn't. The question that I'm starting to want to know is, or ask is, what's McMaster doing there? Whether to tear up Obama's landmark Iran deal, the controversial situation with Cuba when we relaxed trade or allowed trade, the U.S.'s role in confronting Islamic radicalism, the Paris Climate Accord. These are things that they're clashing with. So there's purges that have been going on. Okay, quote, McMaster basically has the list. And over the next 2 weeks, he's going to phase out more senior officials loyal to Trump, said one administration insider intimately familiar with the upheaval occurring at the White House National Security Council. They're taking out people who were chosen to best implement the president's policy that he articulated during the campaign. So, I mean, it's not too much different from what happens when you elect a limited government conservative into office. The bureaucracies and sometimes even other senators and things, they try to do whatever they can to stop your policies from being implemented. McMaster is not in the news just for this, though. McMaster is also in the news. Next article, back to Breitbart. Report, H.R. McMaster believes Susan Rice did nothing wrong in the unmasking. President Donald Trump's national security advisor. This from Charlie Spearing. H.R. McMaster has reportedly concluded that former Obama official Susan Rice did nothing wrong by unmasking the identities of Trump transition officials in conversations with Russian officials. 2 United States intelligence officials told Bloomberg's Eli Lake that McMaster has concluded that Rice did nothing wrong. That assertion is at odds with Trump's thinking as he repeatedly raised the Rice story during speeches and media interviews. Quote, I think the Susan Rice thing is a massive story, Trump said in an interview with the New York Times, suggesting that it was possible that she may have committed a crime. Because this was during the middle of the transition phase, right? After the November election, they started, okay, well, we've now been exposed. We're now going to be in a lot of trouble because Donald Trump doesn't appear to be or represent the status quo. And so now let's start to tear him apart. Let's say that it must have been a foreign government that helped him out. That's the only way we could have lost. Had nothing to do with our ideas. Had nothing to do with the fact that you were lecturing America on pronouns while people were losing their jobs. On April 12th, Trump used the story to defend his accusations that the Obama administration was spying and leaking on his transition team in an interview with Fox Business host Maria Bartiromo. Quote, when you look at Susan Rice and what's going on, and so many people are coming up to me and apologizing now, they say, you know, you were right when you said that. Anyway, question is, what's H.R. McMaster doing? Should he still be on the National Security Council? We have yet another fourth headline, though, another Breitbart headline from, again, Charlie Spearing. H.R. McMaster promised Susan Rice she could keep her security clearance in a secret letter. This dated today. President Donald Trump's national security advisor, H.R. McMaster, allowed former President Obama's national security advisor, Susan Rice, to maintain her security clearance to access classified information despite reservations Trump had about her motives. McMaster sent an official letter to Rice informing her that she would maintain unfettered access to classified information, according to a report from Circa's Sarah Carter. The president was not aware of his actions, according to 2 senior White House officials and an intelligence official. Here's a tweet from Charlie Spearing. The letter H.R. McMaster sent to Susan Rice about keeping her security clearance via at Sarah Carter, D.C. And so they have that. One official questioned Rice's access despite an ongoing investigation into her activities, reportedly unmasking Trump official conversations with Russia during the presidential transition. And you have, you've got Chairman Nunes, who's actually investigating this right now. Why would she keep her security clearance? As Bloomberg's Eli Lake reported, McMaster has also concluded that Rice did nothing wrong by unmasking. We just told you that. Rice celebrated the exit of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and welcomed Trump's decision to hire McMaster. What is going on? These 4 stories that we just brought you. H.R. McMaster says Susan Rice, has security clearance. H.R. McMaster says Susan Rice did nothing wrong. The Free Beacon, McMaster on warpath, purging key Trump allies. And then back on July 21st, purging Mr. Higgins, who wrote a memo mentioning the word globalist and Islamist and talked about really historical insurgencies. That memo, by the way, if you really read it, it seems to suggest that all of this stuff about the deep state and all of this stuff that is essentially revealing that the United States government is not monolithic and that there are factions warring with each other. As somebody who values my personal liberty and the liberty of my family, that bothers me when we have people warring with each other inside our own government. We'll keep following this story. We don't talk a lot about national news, folks. We talk about Arkansas. I'm going to get back to that before we go to break. Get back to Arkansas, but I felt compelled as I saw this unfold today that I wanted to report on it to you. Now let's keep going, because this is not going to take long. Yesterday, we told you about the new Conduit for Action article that's up right now. Still no work requirement for Arkansas works. Okay, you see that. Now, on Facebook, there's been some, what I would call just really entertaining discussion that's been going on, okay? Because on Conduit for Action, not everybody who goes to conduitforaction.org agrees with what is being written about Conduit, or being written about the state, right? They try to argue. And that's fine, welcome a debate. But then when they just get drastically shut down over and over again because you're not making any sense, it's when it kind of gets interesting. So check this out. Go down to Donnie. This guy, Donnie H. Yeah, right there. You see him? This is what he says. Now, notice all the Conduit piece is pointing out is that healthcare, is that there are no work requirements. Really, there's not an actual requirement. It's more like, paths to keeping your insurance. But Donnie says this on the Facebook page. Conduit for Action, sorry, but everyone deserves health care. End of story. Tired of so-called Christians complaining, and I think he leaves an L out of complaining, campaigning about people not working and do not deserve food or health care. Go to rural counties and see what kind of job you can get. I have a BS in business administration. The best job I could find in my county was county jail guard. Now, first of all, think about that. Republicans have been in control a long time now. They should own stuff like that. Yeah, you can move. You certainly can. But that should just tell you how we've got to get regulations out of the way so people can actually get off welfare and do things. Listen to this. You got Conduit responding here. Donnie, if everyone deserves health care, it must follow that we are born enslaved to one another and forced to provide and pay for inefficient government-mandated and regulated services to others who may or may not be able to care for themselves, whichever way the government sees fit. This seems the definition of slavery. Consider what charity care did 40 to 50 years ago compared to now. The government took over and drove out most charity care operations. The argument is not who deserves what. It is simply who decides who gets and who pays. This next part, these next two comments are my favorite. Scroll down a little bit. Mother always said, beggars can't be choosers. Wouldn't it be interesting if that was the philosophy of the welfare system today? You know, instead of food stamps being used to buy ribeye steaks, what about government cheese, a bag of rice, and some beans? Like, we don't want anybody to starve, but we also, if you're going to get tired of eating beans, and maybe you'll go out, get a job, and, buy your own steaks.
Or you go up to the grocery store, hand them your card, and they hand you a basket full of stuff, and it could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
It could be
this is what we got left over.
Or
we
it could be
don't want you to starve, but you take the choice out of it, kind of thing.
Yeah, because you give them the buggy, and it could have something very different than the next buggy, which the next buggy could have 4 ribeye steaks in it.
Right, who knows? But that's a beggars can't be choosers mentality. We don't have that today. Matter of fact, you say that now, people be like, I can't believe you're so cruel. No, hang on, we're not cruel. We're giving somebody free sustenance. But you're cruel. It's just that our mentality's all off. But listen to this guy on Facebook, Dwight on Facebook. Listen to what he writes. No one has a birthright that depends on someone else paying for it or supporting it, period. That's kind of where I just want to end this segment. I saw that comment this morning. I said, you know what? That's really true. We are not born enslaved to one another because that birthright is ridiculous. There is no birthright that somebody has. There's no claim somebody has on you if it depends on you supporting them and their lifestyle. And for anybody to suggest that it's the government's jobs to conscript that in law and conscript us to that kind of service, folks, that is a form of slavery. It's a form, it presumes that you belong to the government before you're a free man or woman. Sorry for using gender descriptions there. 870-275-9799. My name is Paul. The Liberty Machine rolls on. Back in a minute.
Order. In the name of public safety, order. This meeting of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards is called to order in the name of public safety. What's on the agenda for the day?
We have before us today, per our summons, a representative from the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing cosmetology, cosmetologist, and all things hair care and beauty.
Right. Of course, I remember this. In the name of public safety, ma'am, please state your name for the record, and thank you for appearing before us today.
Yes, my name is Cosmo Glamour Gazette, and I'm here in response to a letter our state board received claiming we're in violation of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards. In the letter, you claim that our licensing board is in violation of your rules and regulations because we have failed to, quote, pay tribute, end quote, and therefore have not been granted a license by the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing licensing boards to, quote, shake down the Arkansans who have an interest in cosmetology, end quote.
In the name of public safety, order. Yes, Miss Gazette, we sent you that letter because you have not obtained our approval in the form of a license from our board to distribute licenses to the professional class your board strives to protect. In the name of public safety, of course.
Of course.
So, in the name of public safety, and just so we can get this for the record, you do admit and agree with our board, the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards, that you have not obtained a license, thereby revealing your board of cosmetology to be operating outside our rules, regulations, and authority?
Well, sir, I'm not sure our board agrees that we need a license from your board to continue to shake down, to look out for the public safety of Arkansans.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
Well, it seems we are at a bit of an impasse if we are not in agreement that your board owes us tribute.
Sir, maybe we could ask and see if there's a bureaucrat in the house.
Oh, yes. Yes, that would shed some light on things. A bureaucrat. Yeah, in the name of public safety, is there a bureaucrat in the house? We need someone to resuscitate and confirm our authority as the Arkansas State Licensing Board, governing state licensing boards.
Here.
Ah, yes. Oh, good. Come to the end of the table in the name of public safety and state your name for the record, please.
Yes, I am Despot Ringleader, the head of the Bureau governing all state bureaus, and it is my testimony the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards does have the authority to demand tribute in this situation and will provide in exchange a license to say they can continue to operate in the name of public safety.
It's hard to argue when the public safety is put at risk. Very well. We will consider Mrs. Ringleader's testimony as truth, and we will pay tribute in the name of public safety, of course.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
He puts the Paul in politics. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Your text messages, here we go. One text message, we have Levita. Levita writing from Randolph County in northeast Arkansas. Listening, I'm assuming, I don't know, we don't have where she's listening from. That's a new requirement. If you think about it. She could be listening on our affiliate out of northeast Arkansas, KBTM. She could be listening Facebook Live, paulharrell.com, YouTube. She writes, Paul, the immigration reform Trump announced this week about English-speaking, able-bodied immigrants, in my opinion, coordinates with the Pence Voter Integrity Commission also. Trump is going to stop fraudulent voter fraud. Levita, Randolph County. Let me say, Levita, I think you're right. It's certainly coordinated. And I'm telling you, this voter fraud thing, I'm glad we have listeners out there that I've just briefly mentioned it, I think, twice. But we got listeners out there who get it. And the voter fraud is rampant. The left doesn't want to admit it. They want to say, well, give us an example of voter fraud. Well, if there's loophole, there's no policing of this stuff, or very little. This commission, I'm telling you, is if it's left to actually do its work, who knows? You've got the deep state out there that is very real. I mean, I think it's obvious. If you just look at you look at what's going on out there right now, folks, I think it's obvious that there's certainly are these folks who are lifetime government bureaucrats that are trying to just sabotage Donald Trump. And if you really think about it, it's not from a place of, well, I want to I don't believe this. I don't believe that these government bureaucrats are trying to sabotage Trump or leak on him because there's like, well, he's just unfit for office, or he wants to do these the way he's he's unfit for the presidency, or he's just mean, or he tweets too much. That's not the reason that they're doing this. It's his policy goals. No, it's his policy goals. Folks, he represents the silent majority. He represents those of us who say, you know what, we should have borders. He represents those of us who say, lower taxes are going to be a good thing for the guy. He represents those of us that are sick of Obamacare, And that, ladies and gentlemen, is I really think it's the policy goals. It's the normal people are in control. Because think about this. I mean, our choices were a Bush or a Clinton in most elections of my lifetime, right? You had a Bush or Clinton. Or really, you had the choice even with Obama, because Obama and Hillary primaried each other. Those are our choices. And that makes people, regardless of what definitively, there was a level of comfort, apparently, in Washington that, it's not really this. It's not, it's a Bush or Clinton. Nothing's really going to change here. Say what you want to. I feel like Trump represents something that somebody somewhere is uncomfortable with. Buy our Liberty Machine T-shirts. Help us bring the news to folks in Arkansas that you're not getting anywhere else. Arkansas-based news. I know we talked this last half hour a lot about national stuff. But, folks, listen.
It's an uphill battle, and if we're going to see change anywhere, I think we'll have better chance of seeing it in Arkansas first. It's easier to convince the hearts and minds of 3 million people than it is 300 million Americans. Focus on what's going on here in Arkansas. Join us. Buy our Liberty Machine T-shirts at paulharrell.com. Click on store and tell your friends that this is the show to get the information you don't get anywhere else. Arkansas, be safe. For our Mountain Talk 97 audience, I love you guys. You guys have one more hour coming your way next. See you tomorrow.